Hey everybody, it's Andre from the Eaglesoft Field Guide, and I'm here with a good friend, Reuben. How are you, Reuben?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, Reuben from Darkhorse Tech, and Darkhorse is kind of my go-to
That one.
folks for air. It's on that side, yeah, for my go-to guys for dental IT. And if you ever see any post that I make in the group and it's an error message, I typically say, contact the PTC, and then after that, I say, contact your IT companies. And I'm crossing my fingers,
Yeah.
going, I'm hoping that they're working with the Darkhorse. So. And what I want to talk to you about today, and it's kind of one of those things that um, I've seen a bunch of times happen recently, and I want to talk kind of in general terms about ransomware.
Absolutely. Yeah. The number one threat that we have to deal with on a daily basis.
Really, is it that it's growing, or is it just that it's starting to hit dental offices?
Two things are happening. So one, it's really not just dental, it's healthcare.
Okay.
Healthcare is being targeted because that data is very, uh, well, people will pay to get it back. So they know that. And then the second thing we're seeing is the strains of ransomware are now. So what would happen before is all your data would get encrypted with the ransomware, but they would have no idea where your business was, what it was, and what the data was. That is changing now. So they're now extrapolating some of the data in a lot of cases, which when you talk about patient health record being transferred off site, we're talking about a breach, right? So now we're talking not just about, hey, I'm down. It's, oh, do I need to call the FBI and deal with them because patient health information has now been transferred off site. So
Wow.
it's becoming, one, they're just getting smarter and targeting, healthcare, local governments, anything where, finance. And then two, it's kind of adding some more teeth to what they were already doing. Taking the data offsite is a big problem.
So are we talking about, hey, I got $100 here in my wallet, and if they hit me with ransomware, I send them $100 through my Bitcoin account, or are we talking bigger money? What are you seeing?
The lowest I've seen is $1,500 in
Okay.
terms of a payout. But this was a doctor. This was several years ago. 20 years of digital records, and the $1,500. Andy was down, and you think about production losses, and you're just like, got to pay the money. So,
And
yeah.
do you typically? I send them the $1,500,
Yes.
just on a prayer, and the
Mhm.
likelihood of getting my data back is.
You will hear some anecdotal cases where people have not. In our direct experience, they have a 100% success rate. And that faith in the system is what keeps ransomware viable, right? Because if people were kind of wavering in that they weren't going to get their data back, they would not pay.
Sure.
Right. And so when you get ransomware, they drop all these little notepads on every single file, which gives you instructions on how to see what the ransom is, instructions on how to pay them. And they dangle this little carrot in front of you. They allow you to decrypt one file. So they actually allow you to go in, upload a encrypted file, decrypt it. You can see that they can do it. And it's crazy.
So it's a machine. I mean, they really have this down pat. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, like the last people, we were literally negotiating with them because we were involved in a situation where it wasn't just an office that got encrypted; it was an entire IT company's portfolio. So the ransom was so large that we're talking well over $1 million
Oh,
that the office would not be able to pay that, right? In petty cash set aside. So we were literally like scouting out businesses around the dental office in case they were checking an IP address. So we were like, hey, we're just the car wash or the coffee shop down the road. We can't afford this huge ransom. And like literally the guy was like, oh, let me go talk to my boss, Yuri. He didn't call him Yuri, but like he was like, let me talk to my boss. And we were able to negotiate with them. I mean, so there's a machine piece of this. Which is like really involved in the deploying, infecting, and then there's the business end of it, where this is like huge business, and you don't know if you're talking with like Wall Street super nerds in someone's basement with a VPN, or Russia or North Korea. Like you have just no idea what's going on.
wow. And so now, I'm always curious about this because I see people all the time, like my father-in-law will send me an email that goes, "Is this real?" You know, did they hack my Amazon account? And I'll
Yeah.
say, "Dad, you don't have an Amazon account. What are you talking about?" Is it that kind of thing where office managers are, opening up a
Hmm.
flyer
Hmm.
from, Henry Schein spelled differently and getting some
Hmm.
virus? Or what do you typically see how people are getting these
Yeah,
ransomwares?
so it's a 91% from the last year's stats were it was the vector of attack. So that means you get a UPS, you're due in court, like, this spoof email, you click on it, that payload is downloaded. And now, if you don't have a good firewall, anti-ransomware software, or a good backup system, you're going to be looking at paying that ransom, right? Because in that order, firewall's first line of defense, that's your external protection. Then you have your software on the computer. So think you just download the ransomware. How fast can your software react and stop it? If it even has the capability of doing that. Like if you're out there listening to this podcast and you're using Microsoft free version or Avast or AVG free, it's not going to do anything. And then the backup system, okay, everything's been compromised, but as long as the backup's intact, you can get your data back and you don't need to pay it. So like in that order, preventative, reactive. If you're using your backup, you're clearly down and not happy.
Yeah. And now I'm, so let's just talk about that because I
Mhm.
as a guy who's, helped people install Eaglesoft over the years, and I've had a
Mhm.
lot of offices where, their server crashed and then now
Yeah.
we have to build it back up and they're out, a day.
Right.
How long does it take to rebuild most of the databases? I mean, how long are you typically out? Even if I get my data back, let's say
Right.
24 hours later, how long am I still out?
Yeah. Well, I'll with modern systems like what we use at Darkhorse, we're talking 5 to 10 minutes,
Okay.
but our clients aren't getting ransomware because we're actively preventing that from happening because we use proper tools. But if you're a typical dental office that uses, let's say, your wife or your husband is doing the IT, or you're hiring a solo provider and they're not really healthcare focused, you're talking if you have a backup that is viable, probably a full day, right? And you're going to have lingering effects after that about rebuilding the entire system still. If you don't have a viable backup, that takes us down the pathway of paying to get your data back, right? And that can take a long time. That can take the office that I was working with, by the time they reached out to me, the last one I was working with, they had already been down 9 days,
Mm.
right? Before they had like given up on the faith that their IT company could get them back, and they were looking for other options. So a long time.
Yeah, that's scary. And the things that I always worry about is, uh, that's patient data. That's a HIPAA issue. There are bigger issues than just, oh my God, it's
Mhm.
inconvenient that our computers are down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also embarrassing, right? Right?
Yeah.
If you call every single time, oh, I'm sorry, computer system is down. We'll have to get back to you. Let me
Yeah.
write that down. Yeah.
So what would be the optimal way? Now I know the optimal way is to really do your database the way, I mean, to do
Hmm.
your network the way
Hmm.
it should be. But I
Hmm.
mean, if you got, a lot of our doctors have a private computer in their office, and that's where they go on the
Right.
surf the web and they're doing their
Hmm.
CEO on that computer. Should
Hmm.
that computer be sandboxed beyond above and beyond everything else? I mean, that's what I always think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple different, like there are, when we look at like ransomware software, there's a couple different varieties. There's the reactive one, and then there's the one with artificial intelligence built in. So I think if you are, doing NFL gambling in Europe, I think if you're playing like blackjack on your computer that's back there, maybe you get the higher end. That's going to stop it before it actually runs. Because when you talk about sandboxing, that's what we talked about when we're talking about AI powered. It's able to, even before the program runs, it puts it into a separate container, see what it is. Oh, it's clean, okay, and lets it go. Versus the traditional sense, which is the program first runs and then it tries to catch it.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, I think if it's like, we're talking about front desk, doctor's office, something like that, maybe you opt for the higher level security for those computers. But in the clinical sense, usually those computers are just in Eaglesoft, mostly.
Yeah, and I try to tell people all the time, really, we're at the point now where it's almost like your children. You have to lock down those computers so people
Right.
can't even, I mean, operatory computers, you really shouldn't be surfing the web, for the most part,
Right.
So, and everybody's like, okay, well, we'll just go with a Mac.
No, so that doesn't matter, right? Ransomware, the various strains of it are either PC or Mac or Linux based. So it does not absolve you from being compromised, right? No,
Yeah.
so they write it for, believe me, they write it for all varieties, and they're like, oh, if you own a Mac, that means you had the money to spend twice as much on a computer. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's go for it.
Well, and my big concern is, because I run this Facebook group, I get, messages all the time. Hey,
Mhm.
we're down. Uh, we had a outage, or hey, we're down. We had a ransomware. And I'm thinking, well, I'm one of the last people you want to call. Yeah, I can, refer you
Yeah.
to some folks who can really help you. But, if when I get these calls, it just hurts my heart, because I think there should have been some back end things done. Yeah, you saved some money going with your cousin Vinny in order to get your IT done. But really, this is your workhorse. This is really where you want to make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah, screw around in your test office, like buy a satellite office way out in the country and screw around with that office. All right. But your main production office, like we see this in IT, right? If you're a programmer and you're developing an app, you have your work phone and then have your test phone. So there are just some basic things you can do. If you're trying to do it yourself, right, and you're worried, if you have an IT company, you want to make sure, hey, are they doing the right things? Just ask questions, right? Hey, what are you guys doing to protect us from ransomware? Or hey, you guys are doing our backups. Can you do a test restore? Because what we see is people are just having faith, either in their own systems are just working because they hit run, right, and their job completes 100%, or they hire somebody, and then just come. But occasionally, just to make sure, peace of mind, ask that company. Feel free to ask us. I'll send you a screenshot of your booted server, in a virtual environment. Asked if they can actually recover, because it's not a backup if the data is not able to be brought back. And
Yeah.
we were rapping a little bit earlier. Eaglesoft is one of those more finicky programs that if you have just a standard backup system, you need to stop the Eaglesoft server, backup, restart it, right? So with some of the more modern systems, you don't have to do that. But again, just know that your data is there if you need it.
Yeah. And I made a comment on the Facebook group a little while back, and I said, if your IT company can't restore your data and actually show it to you, and I was thinking, what, have them bring in a laptop. I mean, I'm thinking old school, but I said, bring in a laptop with your data running on that laptop that they restored from outside your office, and prove to you. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, all my IT friends are going to call me and yell at me. But I knew that, I knew you guys would be able to do it. I didn't have any thought that you guys wouldn't be able to go, Andre, here it is right here. And that should be the test for everybody who has an IT company, to say to them, I want to see my data restored from a backup, from yesterday or whatever. I think that's a great test.
It is. And there's the cheapest option, and then there's for me, MVP, or minimum viable product. And the minimum viable product is a backup system that includes a plan for recovery. And what I mean by that is, you're in office, your system goes down, and you have no idea how long it's going to take you to get back up. Right? You have no idea if the data is recoverable. You don't know if you have to get a new server because that one's just completely zonked, right? So for us, and we work in 47 states, and one of those states is Alaska and another one is Hawaii. I don't have people in either of those states, but guess what I do have? If your server, something happens, let's just, not even ransomware, let's say your server crashes, I can get you up in 5 minutes, from anywhere in mainland. So, and that for me is the MVP, is, the doctors hire us to kind of talk them out of the swapping hard drive model, right? To say, hey, we need to be able to know the data's there, test it, recover it, and you'll be down for maybe 5 minutes if ransomware or something hits.
See, I don't ever have any concern because here, I take my data and I put it on here. So every night, everybody logs out of Eaglesoft, and then I back it up on here. And I put this. My jeans actually have a pocket.
Yeah.
Just for,
you should put it in a bag and swallow it. That's really
a great idea. And then for 24 after 24 hours, I'll be able to restore it.
That's right.
I can't tell you how many offices I hear where that is their backup solution, where, at the end of the night, somebody runs that backup. And then I come in and I say, let's run a user, let's view how many users are still in Eaglesoft.
Yeah.
And that tells me that you didn't run your backup. You got QuickBooks on there.
Yeah. 100%. And Patterson, I mean, for those Patterson people that are, loyal to the death, they do have a product. They acquired Rescue DDS, which, they charge a good amount of money, $300 to $1,000 a month for their backup systems, but that's the real-time recovery. Now, our systems, they were the first to market. There's now products out there that compete with them for far less money, but this is a difference between something like Patlock and a Rescue DDS, right? Patlock is just an Eaglesoft file backup system. Rescue DDS is like, hey, if anything happens to your server, here's a plan.
Yeah, and that's for anybody who is out there looking, this is a great way. If there's a whole lot of marketing material out there, take a look at what's out there, and don't tell me that you're doing Carbonite. Don't tell me you're doing something else. This is your patient data. This is your livelihood. This is important information, and it really needs to be backed up properly. And you need to challenge your IT company who's doing this. And it has to be done.
This is driving a car without insurance. For sure, right?
Wow.
Like
I at least people doing that.
Well, yeah, no, and hope they don't run into you. Right? This is, as business owners, Andre, if we get hit by a bread truck while we're driving, like we need to have a plan in place because there's a lot of things that we're responsible for. So yeah, the other problem is we see just in terms of trends, it's perception, right? There is. Most offices think they're HIPAA compliant when actually you do the test, it's about 6%.
Yeah. Well, most people can't even spell HIPAA. Yeah. So, it's one of those, this is one of those things where, everybody has got to, this is not even just assume that you're correct. Let's confirm that you're correct. Go to an outside source and have them, test your product, make sure you're following through and making sure everything's good. Because the last thing I want to do is call you on a Friday night at 9 o'clock at night and go, hey, one of the fielders got hit and they're using Bob Schmo, the IT guy locally. What can you do? And now you're so far behind the 8 ball and, so really we want to find a way to make sure that everybody is okay.
Prevent.
Now, do you do anything like a site evaluation, something like that, to find out what their setups are like? And
so typically, like our process is the way we've grown is mostly referral, which has been awesome, which has allowed me to hire a bunch of technicians, and I talk to most of our new prospects that come in the door. So our process is I talk with the person, I see if they're a rational human being. That's the first test. And then I get a sense of how big their office is, if it's multi-site location, are they running Patterson dual database, like anything funky. And then we schedule an assessment, right? And that assessment will reveal all of these things. And, most of the time there is something that's not being done. Right there. That's why we do audits. We do internal audits, not just on this stuff, but could be like, oh, this vendor has had our credit card and they're just running this and who knows why. So it's just good to do audits in general. So we do the assessment, we present the information to you, the business owner, and we say, here's everything. Now it's up to you.
Cool. So my Pentium 2 running Photoshop. It won't pass. You don't think, right?
It's not going to run Eaglesoft. I don't know what you're running on that Pentium 2.
No, it runs slow, but I'm running it. It's connected to my cone beam,
Yeah. So that's a great segue, because we'll have a completely Windows 10 Server 2019 Office, and then they bought like a cone beam from Renew Digital with an XP computer, which hasn't gotten security updates in 6 years, and then they're fighting with us on that, and it's just like,
because they can't upgrade the computer.
Yeah, because that means they have to buy a new cone beam. I'm like, well, that Renew Digital had some sort of right to tell you that, not to sell you a computer that went out of date 6 years ago.
And I used to have this graph in my PowerPoint slide when I would do talks about Eaglesoft, and showing like how old XP is. So if you bought a computer with XP installed on it, how old is that computer? It's amazing that that computer, you could have upgraded it to Windows 8. And now you're on Windows 10 on that computer, but that computer is older than my child. I've got a 30-year-old. So sometimes it's not just you're upgrading the computer, the OS, but you really have to really look at new computers, and it's an undertaking, but it's what we have to do. So.
It is, and Windows 7, which is the more recent example, that went end of life January of this year, so about 11 months ago. And at least Microsoft gave a little option or two, right? You can upgrade to Windows 10. You also, because of the Navy and their systems, sell extended support. So for those of you that do have CBCTs, those CBCTs do not support a Windows 10 driver, it's $60 a year to keep support going. And supposedly that's going to be until the end of 2021 or 2022. So it's still up in the air, but you can still be HIPAA compliant and have a Windows 7 Pro CBCT acquisition computer.
Wow. Okay. So and I didn't know that. So, there are a lot of offices who are being told they have to upgrade, but it's better to do so. But they, in theory, could stay Windows 7 for.
It's like lazy IT, right? You just upgrade or replace. There is a third option. I don't know why more people don't talk about it or know about it, but it is. It's available, and it's like $60.
Yeah, so it's a viable option, but not the best option.
That's correct. But sometimes, again, the CBCT is the best example. If the doctor's staring down the barrel at another $50,000 to $60,000 machine, that is the best option, unless they want to buy a new machine. Then if your Patterson rep will love to take your phone call.
Yeah, call us first. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. This is a big help, because this is one of those things where, there is nothing worse than having that phone call, having somebody say, or having that red screen show up on your computer, and not knowing what to do. So be prepared by saying, who cares? I got people behind me, and they can help me get my data back and get me back up and running. So I'm glad you're out there helping folks do this.
Firewall, antivirus, backup system.
Good antivirus.
Good antivirus. And 4 would be confirm that it works, right? Ask for the proof.
Yeah. So that's everybody's challenge for, talk about Black Friday. Here's your Black Friday challenge. Forget going out shopping. We shouldn't be doing anyway. Don't do it on Black Friday, but next week, your IT company to confirm your backup. And then the pucker fest won't happen, as we get into 2021, right?
That's right.
So I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for all your help.
Thanks for having me on, Andre.
All right now.
Hey.